Welcome to the More Than Fitness podcast.
And we are live and ready to rock. All right, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Minisode number 18 on the More Than Fitness podcast. And today, we're going to rustle some jimmies. I don't know where did that saying come from? That's what I really want to know. I want one of you all to send me a message and let me know the origin of the saying, this is going to rustle some jimmies. Like, I understand rustle some feathers. That makes more sense. But rustle some jimmies. Yeah, I need to know the origin of that. But nonetheless, today, that's what we're doing, right? And it's because this is a topic that, or I guess this is more of an activity that I think a lot of you guys may be doing. And it has to do with your amazing little Apple Watch or Fitbit or Surge or whatever the hell else you use to count your calories burned. That's the phrase. So your calories burned. People love to track their calories, but then they also love to track how many calories they burn. They compare with friends. They have these groups going. They get competitive. But little do they know, it may not be as accurate as they think. And with that, let's get into the minisode with Lily's question. Lily, thank you so much for asking this question. As always, if you want to ask your question, check the link in the description and you can click that and fill out the Google form and I can get to your question on one of these minisodes personally. And I would love to do that. And I would greatly appreciate it if you guys would help me out and ask a great question. And with that, Lily asks, should I trust how many calories my Fitbit tells me I burn daily? I like to be in a slight surplus to gain muscle, but I walk super often, so my calories burned for a day can be high. Also, what about eating to hit my higher macros when my activity is lower? All right, so first question, should I trust how many calories my Fitbit tells me I burn daily? No, you should not. And this goes for Fitbits, this goes for Apple Watches. There's actually some interesting studies in 2016 and 2017 that showed 16 to 93% inaccuracies in the energy expenditure shown on the Apple Watch and the Fitbit. And so just so everyone knows, let's say you have a 50% inaccuracy on one of these things. That's if it says you burn 600 calories, you may have only burned 300 calories. And I can promise you, if you're eating an extra 300 calories per day to eat back those calories burned, you're going to have some issues if you're trying to lose body fat. So for Lily, pretty name, by the way. Lily just kind of rolls off the tongue, Lily. She says that she'd like to be in a slight surplus to gain muscle. So for her, this is going to be a little bit different, but the concept still stays the same, whether you're trying to lose fat or gain muscle, right? And so we know that the accuracy of these devices cannot be trusted. So therefore, it's kind of unreliable to use these over time as a gauge for if what you're doing is working or not. And that's what's most important here. So she wants to know about eating the calories that she burned back, right? And again, since we can't know this, it's a useless variable to think about. So what we can and should focus on instead are the variables that we can control, right? And so these are things, these are going to be tangible things that we don't rely on a device necessarily to calculate up, because you also have to think about how individual you are. I know you may put in your stats and everything like that, but there's still metabolic differences and just tons of individual variations that your Fitbit or your Apple Watch cannot count for. And so instead, what I think you should do is focus on the variables that you can keep constant. And those would be things like your strength in the gym. So it's very objective if you write down what exercise you did, how many sets you did, how many reps you did, and the amount of weight that you were using for that. And if over time that weight is going up within a certain rep range, you're going to end up gaining more muscle. And that's a good variable to track because it's objective. It's not up in the air to consider or anything like that. You know that over time, if you can only bench 95 pounds for 5 reps, and then you can next year end up benching 95 for 10 reps, you're likely going to have more muscle as an effect for that. So strength in the gym, track that. Focus on what you can control. That's a variable that you can control. Next up is going to be how many calories you're eating on a daily basis. So this is something that you can keep constant. Now, I know there's probably, there may be some people that may say that the nutrition labels aren't entirely accurate and things like that. There's differences with those as well. I understand, but it's the best method that we can use right now. And at least if you follow the nutrition labels, it's going to be consistently off. You see what I'm saying? So it's like, even if a nutrition label isn't exactly the exact amount of calories that's in that food, if you're consistently tracking it the exact same over time, the exact amount doesn't necessarily matter as much. What matters is that you measure the exact same way consistently over time so that you can observe the differences. So how many calories you're eating every single day, that's going to be something that you can control. You can measure your food using a food scale. You can use the nutrition labels. You have MyFitnessPal. You have so many different things where you can actually measure exactly how much your food you're eating on a regular basis. Next up is going to be some form of measurement. And this is going to be to know that if what you're doing is working or not. So you say you want to gain muscle, right? Okay, so in this case, in order to know that we're gaining muscle, or at least we have variables that indicate that we're building muscle, things like body weight or taking pictures. And whenever I say taking pictures, I mean taking pictures in the same lighting, in the same position, with the same background, with the same poses. Everything is the exact same, and over time. So I would do front, side, and back pictures, and you can use those. Take those about every 4 weeks or so, and you should be able to notice some differences. Whenever you're gaining muscle, it may be a little bit trickier. I would advise you to use body weight or body measurements, which we'll get to in just a second. But for losing body fat, it's going to happen more quickly than gaining muscle. So in 4 weeks, you can actually see some noticeable differences in your body composition, like how you look, your definition, etc. So pictures may be good for whenever you're losing body fat. And again, instead of doing body weight and pictures, and you can, of course, do all of these if you want to. It's up to you. If you have all of them, that just means you have more data to work with. But you could do body weight, you could do pictures, or you could do body measurements. So if you have measuring tape, you can measure the size of your biceps. You can measure the size of your chest and back. You can measure the size of your thighs. And as long as you stay consistent on a weekly basis, that you're going to be able to see some consistencies. If your waist is staying about the same, and then your biceps are getting bigger, or your chest is getting bigger, or your back is getting bigger, your thighs are getting bigger, that's typically a good sign that you are gaining some muscle mass. Body weight is, of course, going to be another good indicator for most people. Make sure that you're not gaining too quickly is going to be important here. But if your body weight is going up over time, that's probably another good indicator that you're building at least some muscle. So again, yes, you can control all of these variables and use them as data to work with to see if you are in a calorie surplus and are gaining muscle. Also, how your pants are fitting. That's kind of another way to, like if you have a favorite pair of pants that you wear often, that you've worn for years or something, if those pants are fitting looser than normal, that means, okay, you're probably losing a little bit of body fat. If they're getting tighter, that means, okay, we could be gaining a little bit of body fat, maybe gaining a little bit of muscle around your rumpus and your thighs or something like that. So all these variables are certain things that you can consider that are going to be more reliable than relying on an Apple Watch or a Fitbit. Are we on time? We're good. Okay. And next up, and so another thing is whenever we eat in a calorie surplus or in a calorie deficit, so whenever you're trying to gain muscle, it's a good idea to typically eat in a calorie surplus. So eating more calories than you're burning, right? Whenever you do that, your body adapts in this cool little way. And again, this is different for everybody. Some people have more of an effect of this and some have a lesser effect. But your NEAT goes up. If you eat more food, if you take in more energy, you're just going to move around more, just naturally. So NEAT stands for non-exercise activity thermogenesis. And these are things like whenever you take the stairs, whenever you're walking around, whenever I'm sitting. So see how I'm sitting up and not necessarily resting my head on anything? It takes me calories. I burn calories from having to hold my neck up. This is why, like, if you're sleeping, I'm going to fall backwards because I'm not using energy or muscles to hold myself up. So yeah, your NEAT is going, so tapping or like fidgeting on your feet, or tapping on a desk or something like that you do whenever you're working. These are all things that are not exercise, but you're going to be burning calories while you do these things. So if you're eating more for muscle gain, it's more likely that you're going to be up and moving more. You'll notice that you're probably more energetic. You're tapping your foot more. You may have better performance in the gym. All of these things are increased because your body is trying to maintain your set point. For a lack of a better term, it's just like your body is comfortable around a certain body weight and a certain body fat. And your body's going to do everything it can to resist these changes that you're making to it, because your body just wants to chill, right? Your body just wants to maintain homeostasis. Homeostasis, that's a fun word, by the way. It wants to maintain equilibrium. But whenever you add in food and you also resistance train, it's like you're trying to build muscle. Your body, like muscle, is energy expensive, right? It's very expensive for your body to have more muscle mass because it has to supply more energy to these areas of your body. But your body's just trying to survive and make babies. That's what's going on here. Your body does not want to become a super muscle machine, right? So what it does is it has feedback mechanisms to try and reduce that from happening. And so whenever you eat more, your body wants to move more naturally. And vice versa, whenever you diet down, your NEAT, your non-exercise activity thermogenesis, another fun phrase, it will go down as well. So you'll stop moving more naturally. You won't be tapping your foot as much. You won't have as much pep in your step. Even just how you talk and how you think and everything like that. These are all things that it's just everything is going to slow down because it's trying to save as much energy as possible. You're not eating as much food, so your body is going to compensate by trying to hold on to that energy as much as possible. And what I'm getting at here is these are things that your Fitbit and your Apple Watch do not take into consideration, especially from an individual standpoint. But what you can focus on is the things that I mentioned earlier: your strength in the gym, how many calories you're eating, and then some form of measurement of your progress. So is what you're doing working? And how do you know it's working? These are things that I do with all of my clients, because if you don't measure it, you can't manage it, right? That's the old saying. But it's just like, if you don't know what you're doing is working objectively, we're not just guessing our way to fat loss or muscle gain. It's like there is an actual way to do this strategically. But the thing is like, if you're not working with somebody, it's hard to do it on your own. That's a conversation for another day. But in the end, do not worry about how many calories you are burning on a daily basis. It's too difficult to measure, and it's going to lead to too many inaccuracies and unreliability that could actually adversely affect your progress. Instead, focus on the things that you can control and go from there. You will be much better off. So Lily, thank you so much. Oh wait, lastly, also, what about eating to hit my higher macros when my activity is lower? No, dude, just keep it, again, keep the variables as constant as possible. And this is, again, if you need to make adjustments to your calories, you're going to get that information based off of your body weight, your pictures, your measurements, etc. There's no reason, don't get too crazy about trying to adjust your calories if it's a rest day. This is my opinion. If it's a rest day, or if you, for some reason, like don't walk as many steps or whatever, it's like just keep the variables the same throughout the week. Take the averages of things, and then you're gonna be in much better shape than if you would worry about, okay, my activity is lower, so I need to make sure that my food is higher, or vice versa. Like, okay, my activity is higher, So that means that I need to eat more. It's like, don't worry about calories burned. Just simply do not worry about it and focus on the variables that you can control and can understand over time. And with that, Lily, thank you so much for your question. I appreciate it. I appreciate you. If you want to get your question answered, again, hit the link in my description. And yeah, that's it, guys. Thank you so much, as always. And this is Minisode number 18 on the More Than Fitness podcast. And I messed it up. Fuck. But thank you, as always, for watching and listening. Okay, see ya.